Welcome to our radio show, The Way, the Truth, the Life.
So slowly, this opinion of being better than others, more holy than others, started to fill my heart more and more. And I was getting more and more proud. And slowly, because of this opinion, the grace slowly, without noticing, very slightly, was withdrawing from me. And instead of grace, there came demonical influence. And during the mental Jesus prayer, I have found in the books that there is certain breathing technique that you pray with. When you inhale and exhale, you divide your prayer on two parts. But it also said that it's not easy and it's very dangerous to use this technique if you do not have experienced guide. And unfortunately, I didn't have one, because those people in the monastery were good people, good Christians, but they didn't have experience in those things. And as a matter of fact, not many people in this world have experience in these matters. So I said to myself, well, I don't need experienced guide. God loves me a lot and I will do it myself. So I started to pray this way, but in a wrong manner. And I was forcing myself with exhaling, and especially here in the throat, where the vocal cords are. I was forcing my vocal cords to suppress the breath. So I was breathing out with a certain effort. And this effort was making me exhaling with forcing myself, especially the vocal cords. And during the course of time, it happened that I somehow damaged my throat. And once when I was praying, and of course, and also I asked for blessing not to go to the compline. Compline is a small service after the dinner. There is a Vespers, then dinner, and after the dinner there is a compline, which is the final day church service, and then after that we go to bed. So I asked the bishop not to go to compline and stayed in my cell and to spend that time in a mental prayer. And that was a mistake from him also, because he was believing that I'm serious. But you never, a novice, a beginner in monastic and spiritual life, can never do something like this in very beginning. He has to be together with others in the church, in refectory, on obediences, never to withdraw, to separate himself from the brotherhood. This is one of the most important laws in the monastic life, in the spiritual life. Do not separate yourself from others if you didn't grow in spiritual life, if you do not have at least 20 years of spiritual combat experience. So it happened one evening when I was praying that I felt strong, sharp pain in my throat. And it was so sharp that I had to stop praying, that I had to stop pronouncing prayer mentally. And I was afraid a little bit, but I thought it's something that it will pass away fast. But to my disappointment, I have realized it doesn't leave me. And this sharp pain is not leaving, and more than that, it was increasing as I was trying to pray. So it made me really afraid in a moment, and I said, what is this? And I have realized that something wrong happened, but I thought, okay, tomorrow it will be better. So I stopped and I went in bed, but when I woke up during the night and when I tried to continue with prayer, this pain was there. And tomorrow also, and the day after tomorrow also, and then after 3 days, with extreme fear and disappointment, I have realized that something really bad happened to me, and that some strange power entered me and it doesn't allow me to pray anymore. So it was very terrible acknowledgement, and I didn't know what to do, because all those demons that were together with me and in me during my life in the world, they just left me a little bit and they were around me and they were waiting for a critical moment to come back and to tear me apart. Because whenever somebody tries to cut himself off the old way of life, try to go to new life, to clean himself, to purify himself, demons are there, but they cannot approach because of the grace. But they are waiting patiently, like hungry dogs, to attack again as soon as grace withdraws from certain reason. And the grace withdrew this time because I started to elevate myself above others. I started to think that I'm better than others. And immediately the grace leaves those who think that they are better, that they are proud, that they do not love, and they do not ask for advance, that they think that they are the most clever in the world. And now my ordeal started. So the demons came back with full force, and it manifested itself as a fear, as terrible fear, which entered me. And it was connected with this problem with breathing. My throat was stuck all the time. I couldn't breathe. There was this pain, and the worst of all was that I couldn't pray anymore. Not even mentally, but when I started to read prayers also, during reading, this sharp pain was increasing and making me really, giving me really bad time. And because of everything, this fear and anxiety was growing more and more, and it came to the point that I didn't know what is happening with me. And I thought that something really terrible happened with my lungs. So I asked for blessing, and I went to see the doctor. So I went on X-rays, and on X-ray they saw that everything is perfectly all right with my lungs and with my throat. And the doctor, he realized that something on the psychical level is not completely okay with me. So he told me, well, you know, Mr. Alexander, I think that maybe it would be good for you if you take some tranquilizers, you know, some medicines to calm you down. I said, what do you mean? You mean drugs? You mean sedatives? He said, well, yes, I think it will help. And I said, never. I'm not going to take this. I will not take drugs anymore. I will not be a drug addict anymore in my life. So I said no. And I came back to the monastery, to my cell. But I definitely understood that something really bad happened to me. I'm not going to get rid of it that easily. And then it was like, I think, about 6 months after I entered the monastery. Then maybe one of the worst periods in my life started. In comparison with this beautiful period of conversion and this state of being in paradise, now it turned upside down and I found myself in hell. It was hard to explain how beautiful this was that state in paradise, but in the same manner it is really very hard to explain how terrible it was in this hell state of my mind, where I found myself not being able to pray anymore, and this fear was increasing more and more. So I couldn't find rest anywhere anymore, not in my cell, not in the church, not even down there by the lake where I used to go, where it was so beautiful, and when there was that certain spot where God's grace used to come to me, and I thought whenever I come there I will grasp the love of God. Even there, when I would come and sit on my little bench that I made next to the great, very, very big pine tree, I was feeling like everything is destroying in my life. And this fear was so strong, especially during the night. I thought that I'm going to get schizophrenia or something. But somewhere much, much more deeper in myself, I believed that God is looking at me and He knows what is happening to me. And I said to myself, God help me to get rid of drugs, alcohol, tobacco smoking, this empty sex with girls. He helped me a lot. I feel that His power is immense and that He can help me. And this, what happened to me, has certain meaning. I have to endure this. I have to go through this. God help me. And I prayed the way I knew, but it was not the way I had to do, and to protect myself from demonical powers. So they were there and they were torturing me in a very, very terrible manner. So, of course, brothers from the monastery, they have noticed that something is really very strange is happening to Brother Alexander, and they didn't know how to help me. As a matter of fact, they all stepped behind somehow. And then I have realized that even those people in the monastery, they didn't know what to do, and they withdrew from me. They didn't have enough spiritual experience. They didn't have enough, well, I have to admit, love to help me, to be with me. They all vanished, and I felt so alone. And I said, oh my God, is it possible to be alone in the monastery? But I couldn't blame them. They were all young and they didn't know, It is so hard. It's not easy to go through monastic life, especially in the monasteries where you do not have experienced elders. Especially on Mount Athos and in Russia, in Serbia, in Romania, Bulgaria, those old traditional Orthodox countries, spiritual experienced elders are something most precious in spiritual life. Unfortunately, during those years in the United States, I couldn't find experienced elder that could help me. But deep in myself, I knew God will help me. I must not take tranquilizers and all those sedative, those kind of psychiatric drugs that mad people are taking, or mentally disturbed, or people who are in anxiety. The chemistry is not able to help me. There is a living God. He will help me, and I will endure this. I will go through this. And it was very hard. And especially during the nights, I had such a terrible dreams. I thought I'm losing my mind, and I'm sinking deep into schizophrenia. It was so hard. But this hope that God is looking at everything, that God knows what happens to me, this thought, this hope helped me to go through it. And these episodes with fight with demons and the fear, those episodes, I will talk about them later on. They happened to me a few times more, but through them I have realized that man can overcome, can conquer all those terrible moments in human life called anxiety and panical syndrome called in psychiatry, where when you go to psychiatrist you receive full hand of pills and drugs and you never get rid of them. You get seduced on them, you get hooked on them, and that's the most terrible thing. Today such a great number of people are on drugs or on pills. It's a legal drug taking. So we just have to be brave. We need to be brave in a spiritual way, to face directly with our problem. And with God's help, with prayer, with church services, fasting, prayer, communion, we can overcome, we can conquer. The exit is not in psychiatric clinics, in psychotherapy, in pills and drugs. The exit is not there. Exit is in living God who can help us. And we have to go through these critical moments in our lives. And this way we mature as mature humans. If we do not go this way, we will always stay in some kind of infantile state of mind, never completely grown up. And we will always be unhappy and some kind of unrealized personality. Those critical moments in our lives are extremely important for us. If we face ourselves with a problem, with God's help, and with the help of spiritually experienced elder, we can go through it without visiting psychiatrists, hospitals, taking tens and hundreds of pills and who knows what kind of drugs. We can go through it. And when we conquer this, we enter another level of our existence, which is matured, which is absolutely realized. But unfortunately this world goes in completely different direction. We left Bible, we completely departed from anything which is really spiritual. Today everybody says, oh, I'm spiritual, but they do not know what kind of spirit do they follow. And it says when blind leads blind, they both fall in pit. So today we think that we progressed in everything and that we are all spiritual, but the psychiatry clinics and hospitals are full, jails are full. We have so many suicides, we have so many sexual perversions. Of course today to be gay or lesbian, that's something normal, but we all know it's not normal. They are poor people. They are not somebody who has to be beaten or hated. They need help. But unfortunately, we left church, we left God, we left God's law. We do not believe in Holy Fathers anymore, and we go straight to disaster. Just take a look what is going on around us. So many new synthetical drugs, so many drug dealers, so many hooked people on who knows what, and there is an exit, and I have found this exit, and I'm so grateful to the Lord that it happened, that He allowed that this happened to me, this terrible moment of my life, and I was 31 at that time. So I was like a really madman in my cell for the next 6 months. It was terrible ordeal, terrible temptation. It was like a hell. I thought, I don't know when and if ever I'm going to save myself and pull out myself from this terrible, dark, stinking pit where I found myself. But then one day, the Father Superior of the monastery, not the bishop, but the Father Superior, the priest monk, Father Gregory, I remember him fondly. He was a very nice man, very tiny, small, skinny person. Once he knocked on my door and he said, "Brother Alexander, are you okay?" I said, "Please come in, Father." And he said, "You know, these days there is in New York a monk from Mount Athos, from Greece." And of course I knew, for Mount Athos I know that I was informed that Mount Athos was a monastic republic in Greece. It was a peninsula where there were only monasteries, not civilian habitations, and that there is more than, I think, 2,000 monks. And he said, there is an elder from Mount Athos, very experienced one, a holy man. He is in New York right now, and he's confessing Greek clergy and Greek lay people from New York. I know him, I met him once on Mount Athos, and I would like to go this time to visit him again. So would you like to come with me and to drive? And I said to myself, well, I never heard for Father Ephraim, this spiritual elder, and I have nothing to lose. Maybe this will help me just to see the world a little bit, to go to New York, maybe to visit a few of my friends, and maybe to fresh air my mind. So I said, okay, Father Gregory, I will drive you there. I will go with you. When? He said, well, in a couple of days. You have your driving license? I said, yes, my driving license is there. And it didn't expire. So we have rented a car in town of Scranton, not far away from the monastery. So we set on our way 5 days after our agreement on this issue. And so while I was driving towards New York City, Father Gregory was making prayer ropes. He was always doing these prayer ropes. It was kind of his obedience, and it was a simple work, but you can pray during that. And of course you can sell these prayer ropes to the faithful people to come to the monastery. So it's nice. Also he was an icon painter as well. So sometimes we were painting together. And so while we were driving towards Manhattan, I was deep in my problem, feeling this fear and unrest, terrible unrest and terrible fear all the time. It is hard to explain. It was so hard to live. It was like a torture. It was terrible torture. It was, the doctors called this anxiety, but this anxiety was so strong and so escalated in my case that it was not life. It was, I was praying to the Lord. I said, Lord, I cannot stand this anymore. Whether take my life, let me die, or change this. I cannot stand this too long anymore. So finally we have arrived in New York City, so we went to Queens at the house where friends of Father Gregory lived. They were Greeks, but living in New York for a long time, and they were very wealthy people. They had several restaurants on Madison Avenue in Manhattan, so they were very rich, but very nice, very pious, very modest people, living in a modest house with 3 and very decent children, 2 girls and 1 boy. A lot of icons all over the house, and man and wife, they were very, very nice to us. And I have realized that it's not impossible to be rich and to be successful but to be very spiritual at the same time. This Greek couple showed me that it is very, very possible. So we had a dinner, so we went pretty early in bed. It was maybe something around 9 o'clock in the evening, because we had to wake up very early, about 2 o'clock in the morning, and to go to the church, because Father Ephraim, the elder, was receiving from 3 o'clock in the morning, because there was a great number of people who wanted to see Father Ephraim and to talk to him. So he started to receive at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he would continue like this until 10 or 9 or 10 in the morning for more than 5 days. So we came a second day since he started to receive. So I went in bed and I prayed, Lord, help me. Maybe this man can help me, but I just didn't know what to expect. I never met an elder, a really experienced monk. And even more than that, Father Gregory told me this is a holy man. And I didn't know really what to expect a holy man looks like. And what will happen? Is he going to do something to me, or to pray, or to touch me? Or I was so stupid at that time. I just didn't know what to expect. And of course, I was feeling very, very bad. And I didn't know who can help me this way, because in myself, it was only hell, nothing else. So with those thoughts in my mind, I fell asleep. But I couldn't sleep. I mean, all those months that I was under the influence of this terrible fear and this mental disturbance, I couldn't sleep very well. So I would wake up every hour during the night and having terrible dreams of like I'm losing my mind, and those, especially the fear was terrible during the night. So I was already awake when Father Gregory knocked on my door and he said, Brother Alexander, are you ready? I said, yes, I'm ready, Father. Let's go. So finally, we were on our way towards Greek Orthodox Church in Queens. It was a Greek cathedral for Queens, for Greek Orthodox Church. And as we were driving through the streets of Queens, they were empty, everybody was sleeping. And I said to myself, where I am going? It's 2:30 in the morning to see some old man. We are all crazy. Nothing will happen from this. This is all a great mistake. Everything is mistake. Maybe I never had to convert to the faith and to pray. And you see what happened to me. All those terrible thoughts were coming through my mind during our drive towards Greek church. And then finally we have arrived. And since we were monks, Father Gregory and myself, they let us go in front of the line before others. And when we entered the church, there was already around 50 people sitting around in the hallway waiting. It was looking like a waiting hall in some hospital, but it was not a hospital, it was a church. But everybody was silent and nobody was in despair like it is usually in the hospitals. They were all quiet and calm, waiting for their turn. So Father Gregory first entered. He stayed there for about, I think, maybe 10 minutes. Then I entered. It was a not very big room, and it was a very low sofa. And on sofa there was an old man, very skinny one, and very short one. I think maybe he didn't have more than 50 kilos, I think it looked like, but with a very pleasant face. And on the chair next to him there was a Greek priest, American Greek, who spoke fluently Greek and English, of course, because he was American born. Because Elder Ephraim, he didn't speak English. So he was sitting there. It was the light was dimmed in the room, and he said, "Please come." And the priest was translating. So I didn't really even plan what to tell him. I just planned to tell him that I feel very bad, I cannot pray anymore, and I have great desire to go to Mount Athos, but I couldn't do that because my passport expired, and now I don't know what to do with my passport, and the whole thing is in, my whole life is in mess. I just didn't know how to pronounce and how to construct a sentence, what to tell him. So he said, okay, my child, okay, just kneel down. And I knelt next to Elder Ephraim, and he took my head gently with his hand, and he bowed my head down to his knee. So I rest my forehead on his knee, and in this moment he started to pray something. He was pronouncing certain prayers, but whispering. It was not long, maybe a couple of minutes. Then he made a sign of cross on my head. Then he gave me a few pieces of incense, a little plastic icon. He put this in my hand, and to my great surprise, he kissed my hand, like when you kiss a priest's hand. And I was not even a monk or a priest, but he kissed my hand. Great elder kissed my hand. At that moment, I didn't know what does it really mean. Then he said, "Okay, you go now. So I said, "Thank you." I didn't know what to think. It was nothing. I didn't know what to expect, but I thought at least something spectacular will happen. But nothing spectacular happened. Only an old man prayed above my head, and that was it. So I left, and then we went back. It was like, I think, close to 4 o'clock in the morning when we came back home, and we went straight back to the beds again, because it was early in the morning. We didn't want to start our trip towards Pennsylvania yet. So we went to the bed to have more rest, and then in the morning about 8 o'clock we woke up. We had a breakfast with our Greek friends. They wished good luck to us, and we set on our way towards Pennsylvania. Then we drove from Queens to Manhattan. Then we went uptown. We took that big bridge over Hudson River towards New Jersey state. And when we entered New Jersey, it was now several hours trip in front of us. And then I immersed myself in my common thoughts about my fear and the torture that I was going through. Father Gregory was making prayer rope sitting beside me, and that's how we were traveling in silence. And I have to admit, I was disappointed. Nothing happened. I'm feeling bad. This terrible fear is there in my heart and in my mind, and I just know if I'm ever going to be healthy and good anymore in my life. And that's how we were traveling for next half an hour. And then, after about half an hour driving already from Manhattan, something really strange happened with myself. All of a sudden, while I was driving, without noticing at the first moment, but then I noticed, I felt that this fear in my chest that was torturing me for more than 6 months now, all of a sudden became less. It subsided, and in about 15 minutes more, fear was not there. After 6 months of constant horror, the fear diminished, and I couldn't believe. But now, what happened after this, there is no time for this meeting to continue, and with God's help, I will tell you what happened in our next meeting. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening Radio Svetigora, the radio station of the Serbian Orthodox Church, Diocese of Monte Negro and the Seaside. Blessed by His High Eminence, Metropolitan Amphilochia.
It is much more beautiful and pleasant to give away than to receive.